Namaste, and welcome to the Aham Bharatham podcast, the voice of a timeless nation.
It's a real privilege to be here to begin this deep dive together. We're focusing on something that isn't really about current events, but something much deeper.
Something more enduring.
Exactly. We're looking at let's say, the architecture of consciousness itself. And what we're exploring today, which is so rooted in the wisdom of this ancient land, it's more than just a topic. It's really an orientation to life.
I think we have to unpack that immediately, because the wisdom we're drawing from, it sets the stage so well. It points to a really powerful paradox in our modern world. Spirituality, it's so often become this kind of consumable, like a lifestyle brand.
A lifestyle brand, yes. That's the perfect way to put it.
You see it absolutely everywhere. The simple hashtags, the neatly packaged healing quotes, and always this constant promise of calm.
And it's usually delivered in these very aesthetically pleasing little squares on your social media feed.
Right.
And the thing is, what this modern branding does is it creates a profound oversimplification. It leads to this core misunderstanding, this idea that the spiritual path is somehow the same as being endlessly cheerful.
Or just, always positive.
Always positive. It gives you the illusion that if you're really on this path, then sadness or confusion or even deep anger, they should just vanish.
And the assertion from this body of wisdom is that this belief system, this good vibes only approach, is actually a form of avoidance. It's just avoidance dressed up in the language of enlightenment. We think we're being spiritual, but we're still just trying to escape reality, not meet it.
And that is the central premise of the journey we're sharing here, what this deep dive is all about. True spiritual growth isn't about escapism. It's not a relentless chase for some fleeting feeling of happiness.
So what is it about?
It's about waking up. It is the profound, sometimes difficult act of becoming deeply aware of yourself and the true complex unfolding of life.
And when you say the whole unfolding, you mean everything.
I mean the whole thing, the light and the shadow, the joy and the inevitable pain.
So the key assertion here, and it really changes everything, is that awareness, not forced optimism, is the real heartbeat of a spiritual life.
Yes.
It completely repositions the goal.
Yeah.
It's not about feeling good, which is an emotional state that depends on circumstances.
Right, which is always changing.
It's about seeing clearly, a perceptual state that's independent of the circumstances.
And that shift, from an emotional goal to a perceptual one.
Yeah.
That is everything.
How so?
Well, think about it. When your only goal is emotional, to feel content, to feel peaceful, you're constantly in reaction mode.
You're always checking your internal temperature.
Exactly. You're judging every little fluctuation, trying to manipulate your world or your thoughts to get back to that preferred feeling. It is exhausting, and it's fundamentally reactive.
But if the goal shifts to awareness, to what we might call drishti, the ability to see things as they truly are,
then the effort stops being about controlling the conditions around you. It starts being about building a stable, non-reactive foundation inside you. The feelings can come, the stress can arrive, but that stable core, that clarity of vision, it remains.
And it's this foundation of clarity that we really want to explore today, starting with, I think, the first and biggest barrier to it,
which is
the illusion of mandatory positivity, and why we so desperately need rigorous authenticity instead.
a very good place to start.
The common mistake, as these timeless reflections articulate, is how spirituality has just been slattened, reduced to perpetual peace and smiles. And while that idea is so comforting, who doesn't want to feel calm all the time?
Of course.
This belief system, it actually harbors a dangerous denial. And I want to push on that word, dangerous. Why isn't it just, say, unhelpful? Why dangerous?
It's dangerous because it forces us to commit an act of really psychological violence against ourselves.
Wow.
We're compelled to split ourselves into two parts. There's the acceptable spiritual self that smiles and posts healing quotes.
Right, the public-facing self.
Yes. And then there's the unacceptable human self that holds all the inconvenient parts of our genuine reality. The fear, the sadness, the messy, conflicted parts of us that we're told to hide.
That sounds like you're describing an internal civil war.
It is an internal war. You're constantly having to suppress or censor the parts of your experience that don't fit the brand.
And that denial, I imagine, is just, it's immensely costly in terms of our vital energy.
Tremendously. The guidance that you find in the deeper spiritual traditions is always a movement toward being real, toward a kind of radical authenticity.
So it's about allowing the full spectrum.
The full spectrum, the sunshine and the storm, without suffering that devastating self-loss that comes from trying to judge and control your own internal weather. The storms will come. That's a guarantee.
Let's analyze this consequence of compulsory positivity a bit more. We hear advice all the time, things like choose joy or manifest happiness. And genuine positivity, it can be helpful. It gives us hope. It inspires action. So where's that subtle line? Where does it cross over from being helpful into being a damaging denial?
The line is crossed when positivity becomes a prescription rather than an organic outcome.
Ah, I see.
So when you feel fear, and instead of just acknowledging that fear, you immediately force a positive thought on top of it, what have you done? You've just disconnected from your genuine emotional reality.
You're operating from a script.
You're operating from a script of how a spiritual person should feel, rather than acknowledging with raw honesty how you do feel in this exact moment.
The reflections we're looking at use this really striking analogy to drive the point home. It says that this compulsory positivity is like putting perfume on a wound.
That image is so visceral, isn't it?
It is.
It just perfectly illustrates the cosmetic nature of this denial. The surface, it looks beautiful, it smells pleasant. Maybe it even gets you a lot of likes on social media.
Sure.
But what is it actually doing to the wound itself, the underlying trauma or pain?
Well, it's actively halting any real profound healing.
Exactly.
A wound needs to be cleaned. It needs to be exposed to air. Maybe it needs stitches. It's a process that is often uncomfortable, even ugly. Perfume is just a distraction.
It's a distraction. It covers the symptom without ever addressing the root cause. This is the very definition of what people call spiritual bypassing.
Right. Using spiritual ideas to avoid your unresolved emotional business.
And if we are perpetually in denial of our pain, we are stalling the entire healing process indefinitely. We get trapped in this cycle of masking the reality of our internal world, which, as you said, requires enormous unsustainable energy. That energy drain is the polar opposite of the calm we say we're seeking.
And so this tradition asserts that true strength isn't found in avoiding pain. It's found in consciously meeting it with awareness and clarity. Yeah. But for someone listening, maybe someone struggling with real trauma or deep sadness, how do you distinguish between meeting the pain and just morbid rumination, just dwelling in negativity?
That is a crucial distinction. And the key difference is the practice of awareness. Rumination is the mind spinning in circles, telling the same old stories about the pain, analyzing why it happened, projecting it into the future. It involves a very strong identification with the feeling, I am a victim. I am sad.
So what does meeting the pain look like then?
Meeting the pain requires a kind of expansion and courage. It means saying, I acknowledge this intense feeling, this contraction in my chest, this fear. But, and this is the crucial part, maintaining the sense that you are the one witnessing it.
So if fear comes up, the path isn't to immediately say, I choose joy.
No!
The path is to say, I acknowledge this fear, I'm observing the shape it's taking, and I'm not going to judge it.
Exactly. And this brings us directly to the foundational requirement for any real growth. Authenticity has to be the starting point. Spiritual growth is absolutely impossible without radical self-honesty.
So authenticity means accepting your internal state without any filter.
Without a filter. Accepting the fear, admitting the confusion, acknowledging the envy, recognizing inadequacy, without immediately jumping in to fix it or judge it.
And this courage to be real, it stops that internal fight against your own nature. And that cessation of the fight, that surrender to what is, that's what these deep reflections suggest is the beginning of natural healing.
It is the moment the resistance drops. Resistance is the energy that actually perpetuates the pain. If I am sad and I fight the sadness because I think I shouldn't be sad, I now have two problems.
The sadness and the exhaustion from fighting it.
Precisely. Authenticity ends the war. It brings the warring factions to the table. It just says, yes, this fear is here right now. This is my reality.
And that profound self-honesty, that's the core guidance. It sets a very high bar, though. It means you have to be true to what you're experiencing right now, even if it doesn't align with your idealized, picture-perfect spiritual self-image.
It does.
It sounds like the highest form of spiritual discipline is just telling yourself the truth.
It is. The whole spiritual tradition of Bharat, which is built on self-realization, on Atman, realizing Brahman, it cannot start from a place of deception, not even self-deception. If we are truly seeking stable peace, We have to first admit the precise nature of our own internal turbulence. We often think of peace as the absence of negative feelings, but here, peace is redefined. It's the stable ground beneath the emotional weather. It's the acceptance of the full spectrum of feelings.
So to sum up this first insight, the modern world offers forced positivity as a kind of temporary emotional boost.
A quick fix.
But this wisdom argues that forced positivity is actually a form of poison because it hardens our denial. And the only antidote is the raw, unflinching acceptance of our present emotional reality.
And that acceptance is the doorway. The moment we stop fighting, we are ready to move into the true work.
Which is awareness itself.
Yes, we move from just analyzing what we feel to realizing who is doing the feeling.
And this brings us to the heart of it, doesn't it? Awareness. The reflections define it as the moment we stop running from reality.
It's the crucial next step after you've established authenticity. If you're authentic about feeling fear, the next step is to simply observe that fear.
And this is the practical definition of spirituality that's being offered.
It is. Awareness is the non-judgmental observation of your emotions, your thoughts, your actions. It is the establishment of an internal witness, the Sakshibhava.
The witness.
And this witness is critical because it creates a functional separation between you, the experiencer, and the experience itself.
Okay, let's break that down in real time for anyone listening. So, a sudden surge of anger or sadness arises. What does awareness do?
Awareness sees it, and it allows it. The observer, the witness, neither suppresses the feeling, which is the denial we just talked about,
Right.
nor does it impulsively act it out, which is just reaction and attachment. The observer simply witnesses it with a kind of benign neutrality.
And this simple act of witnessing, without labeling it or personalizing it, it creates a gap.
It creates a gap, a space between the stimulus, the boss's email, the difficult memory, and your typical automatic response. And in that small pocket of space, freedom is born.
Before awareness, the emotion is you.
You are engulfed by it, by the heat of the anger. But when awareness arises, you realize the emotion is something you are experiencing. It's a temporary event happening inside you, not something you are.
And this act of witnessing, this realization of being the observer,
Yeah.
this is identified in ancient Indian philosophy as Chaitanya.
Yes, it connects this simple psychological insight of observation to the cosmic truth of consciousness itself.
So what is Chaitanya exactly?
Well, Chaitanya is a very foundational and complex term. It doesn't just mean being conscious in the modern sense, like being awake instead of asleep.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. It refers to the pure, ultimate, timeless consciousness that is the ground of all being. It's the unmoving field upon which all our mental and physical fluctuations occur. So when we witness our inner world without judgment, we are aligning our individual consciousness, the jiva, with that universal consciousness, that Chaitanya.
So the work is essentially realizing that our true nature is this pure, vast awareness.
It is. So the spiritual work of just observing your own internal monologue, it's not just some self-help tool. It is a profound philosophical endeavor to realize your place within the greater reality.
It takes the practice out of the personal transactional realm and grounds it in the eternal reality of Brahman.
Absolutely. And the wisdom tradition really emphasizes this by grounding the practice in its deepest historical context. The Upanishads. These texts, thousands of years old, they didn't focus on moralizing or promoting blind positivity.
What was their focus?
Their entire focus was on awakening, on seeing life clearly, on stripping away the layers of illusion.
They spoke a lot about avidya, didn't they? Ignorance as the root of suffering.
Yes, avidya, spiritual ignorance. It's the fog that prevents us from seeing clearly. It's what causes us to mistake the temporary for the permanent, and to mistake our thoughts and emotions for who we essentially are.
So the Upanishads are a guide out of this fog.
They are, including the fog of illusion that happiness can be found in external things or in forcing ourselves to feel a certain way.
So awakening, then, is a state of clarity, not necessarily a feeling of bliss.
That's a wonderful way to put it. It's the realization that the ghost you were so afraid of was just a coat rack in a dark room. It was a mistaken perception because of a lack of light.
It's seeing things as they are, free of all the stories and desires we project onto them.
This is the definition of spiritual maturity. And to make this concept really relatable, even in the face of extreme suffering, the reflection grounds the argument in the most profound story in Indian philosophy, the Bhagavad Gita.
The Gita, which takes place on a battlefield.
Right in the middle of a battlefield. Arjuna is paralyzed. He's having a profound existential crisis, and his paralysis is not because he lacks positive thinking.
No, quite the opposite. He's overwhelmed by sorrow, fear, deep moral confusion. He is completely consumed by the storm of dukkha, of suffering.
And what was Krishna's guidance? It certainly was not to just smile through the fear.
Right.
If Krishna had offered some simple life hack version of spirituality, it would have been useless. Instead, he forced Arjuna to face that inner turmoil, but to face it with heightened awareness and clarity.
He guided him through a deep understanding, both intellectual and spiritual.
He did. Krishna taught him 3 fundamental principles of awareness. First, the nature of dharma, or duty. To act without being attached to the results.
Focus on the action, not the outcome.
Exactly. Focus on the action itself, done with integrity, not on the fear of winning or losing. This grounds you in the present moment. Second, he taught him about the impermanence of the body and all material things. Arjuna's pain came from his attachment to those he was about to lose. Krishna pointed him toward the eternal nature of the self, the Atman, which is never born and never dies.
So the turmoil is acknowledged, but it's reframed within an eternal context. The fear is temporary because the self that is experiencing it is eternal.
Exactly. The whole focus was on restoring Arjuna's drishti, his objective vision, so he could see the situation free from his personal emotional investment. He was taught to become the witness to his own internal conflict.
The sorrow, the confusion, the fear, they weren't obstacles to be bypassed.
They were the very material of the transformation itself. They created the necessity for true awareness.
And this just exemplifies the path of genuine spiritual growth. It proves that the path begins exactly where the pain is most acute.
It does. It shows the practicality of this wisdom. It acknowledges the severity of human suffering, but it provides the mechanism awareness, Chaitanya, to transcend that suffering. Not by getting rid of the war outside, but by changing the relationship to the experience inside.
So the journey moves from the surface-level emotional manipulation, just trying to be happy, to a profound self-discovery rooted in timeless principles.
And that realization of inner stability is where the healing truly begins. When we observe, we stop resisting. And that cessation of resistance is the mechanism of change, which brings us naturally to integration.
And this is where we can really bridge that ancient wisdom with modern psychological insights. The reflections detail how awareness transforms our experience and actually starts the healing process. The claim is that when emotions are observed without resistance or judgment, they start to lose their power over us. How does that work? How does just observing an overwhelming emotion functionally reduce its power?
The power of a compulsive emotion like anger or anxiety, it derives its fuel entirely from 2 things: identification and reaction.
Okay.
If I identify with my anger, I let it compel me to act, to shout, to send a destructive text. The moment I observe it, I insert that space we talked about. Observation is inherently non-reactive. By becoming the one who observes, I demonstrate in real time that I am separate from the emotion.
So you're no longer the one being driven, you're the one seeing the driving force.
Precisely. That realization is the core mechanism of healing. It diminishes the power of the emotion to compel you to act, and it allows you to move from being driven by subconscious triggers to making conscious, aware choices.
And this leads to that profound realization that the reflection focuses on, the discovery of the calm center.
Yes.
The idea that you are not the emotion, you are the space in which the emotion appears. This feels like the foundational truth that gives us ultimate stability.
It is. Emotions are ephemeral. They rise, they peak, they dissipate like waves on the ocean, or as the reflection says, like weather patterns. They are temporary.
But the constant awareness remains.
Constant awareness remains, serving as that calm, sought-after center. This center is the space itself. It is Chaitanya.
It's like realizing the sky is not the weather.
That's a beautiful way of putting it.
The sky is vast, eternal, unchanging. The clouds, the storms, the sunshine, they are just temporary visitors passing through it. We spend all our energy trying to stop the clouds.
When the real goal is to realize that we are the sky, unharmed by the transient nature of the weather.
And the beauty of this realization is that it shifts the entire basis of our search for peace.
It does. If you seek peace only when the emotional clouds are gone, you will be forever disappointed and exhausted. But if you seek peace in the nature of the sky, in your own essential awareness, you find that peace is already here. It's not contingent on anything. It's here, regardless of the intensity of the storm.
And this allows us to move to the next logical step, which is integration, holding both the shadow and the light for true wholeness.
Life requires darkness to give meaning to light. Sorrow provides a depth and a texture to joy.
When we commit to forced positivity, we reject the darkness. We reject the pain, the shadows, the parts of ourselves we don't like.
And when you reject pain, This wisdom tradition asserts you inherently reject growth because pain so often carries the most essential lessons we need for profound transformation.
If we only accept the parts of ourselves that are pleasant, we stay fragmented. We're dedicating so much energy to maintaining an illusion. And the reflections bring in the work of Carl Jung here, which aligns so perfectly with his ancient insight.
It does. Jung's observation on wholeness perfectly encapsulates what the ancient philosophers were seeking. Wholeness, he argued, is achieved by the integration of these opposites, shadow and light, good and bad, not by dividing yourself or cutting off parts of your being.
So the spiritual path isn't about becoming pure.
No, it's about becoming whole.
Jung understood that the parts of ourselves that we repress, our shadow, they don't just disappear. They retreat into the unconscious.
And from there, they operate in the background. They get projected onto other people, they manifest as chronic anxiety, they control us through destructive, impulsive behaviors.
So awareness, Chaitanya, is the integrating force.
It's the steady light that illuminates the shadow without judging it. If I can shine awareness on my hidden envy or my deep self-loathing, I bring it out of the dark. And once it's seen clearly, it loses its power to control me because I'm no longer fighting it.
Denial, on the other hand, is division.
Denial is division. It hardens that split between the perceived good self and the bad self, which guarantees internal conflict forever.
This integration process sounds deeply healing. It must free up a massive amount of psychological energy that was being used to maintain the denial.
Precisely. When you stop running from your shadow, you gain access to the raw, untamed energy it holds. And this energy, once you integrate it through conscious acceptance, can be channeled into constructive growth, creativity, and a deeper compassion.
So you move from internal conflict to a kind of internal collaboration.
Yes. The mechanism of healing is threefold then. First, you create space by witnessing. Second, you realize you are the calm, stable observer. And third, you use that stability to integrate all parts of yourself, the joy and the sorrow, the light and the shadow.
Which brings us to the most practical part of this deep dive. How do we actually apply this sophisticated framework in the chaos of modern life?
Yes. This wisdom is not meant to be abstract. It has to work in the marketplace.
This is where we bring awareness right down to your kitchen or your commute. The reflections stress that this practice doesn't require a retreat or some elaborate ritual.
It happens right here, right now, in the everyday.
Which demystifies it and makes it accessible, but it still requires dedication.
It does. And the traditions outline specific, actionable techniques for cultivating this presence. And they're powerful because they focus on interrupting that reactive cycle that drives us.
So let's look at these. There are 5 key practices here, starting with the one that breaks the cycle immediately. Pausing.
Just pausing, taking a single breath before you react.
Why is one single breath so revolutionary in a stressful moment?
That one breath is the intentional insertion of space. It stops the momentum of the immediate unconscious reaction, which, for most of us, is instant. Someone says something triggering, and our evolutionary default is to react instantly. The pause inserts that space we discussed. In that fraction of a second, you shift from being the triggered object, the one who is angry, to the conscious subject, the one who observes the anger.
It allows you to ask, what's actually happening inside me right now, before you speak or act. It's a moment of radical self-inventory.
It shifts you from action to observation. And the next practice builds directly on this. Naming. Labeling your emotions. This is anxiety. This is resentment.
Naming is an act of observation, but it also feels like an act of intelligence. It takes this amorphous, overwhelming feeling, and it gives it a clear boundary.
Yes, it turns an overwhelming storm into an object that you can study and contain. And modern psychological studies now confirm what the ancient masters knew intuitively.
Which is?
Simply naming an intense emotion significantly reduces activity in the amygdala, the reactive part of the brain. When you name it, you engage the higher prefrontal cortex, the thinking, reasoning part.
You move from primal reaction to cognitive processing.
And by saying, I am observing fear, you reinforce that critical separation. I am the one who names the fear, therefore I cannot be the fear itself.
The third practice is probably the hardest for a driven, modern person. Allowing passage. Recognizing emotions as temporary visitors and just letting them pass without judgment. We're so trained to solve or fix our feelings that just letting them be seems counterintuitive.
Allowing passage is about surrendering to impermanence. You realize you're not hosting these emotions forever. They are simply moving through the vast space of your awareness. Judgment is resistance.
It's trying to hold the visitor down.
Right, this shouldn't be here. Or trying to push them out, I must be happy now. By allowing passage, you trust the natural cycle of the emotion. All feelings, pleasant or unpleasant, will eventually subside if you don't feed them with resistance or stories.
So it's the opposite of clinging or fighting. It's just holding the door open for them to leave when they are ready.
Which leads to the fourth critical piece, self-honesty. Maintaining this internal truthfulness is described as the vital soil where awareness can flourish.
This brings us right back to the beginning of our deep dive. You can try all the techniques in the world, but without the courage to be honest about the depth of your pain or the source of your confusion.
The seeds of awareness just can't take root. The soil has to be real, not idealized. If I'm fundamentally lying to myself about what I feel, insisting I'm calm when my jaw is clenched, I can never truly observe it.
It's like a spiritual GPS. You have to enter your true starting coordinates to plot a path forward.
Exactly. And finally, the guidance stresses the need to return to the present. Peace is always available here, right now, away from the churning mind that's always lost in regret about the past or anxiety about the future.
Because the present moment is the only place where awareness can actually exist.
It is. The past is memory, the future is projection. They are mental constructs. When we anchor ourselves in the current breath, the current sensation, we escape the mind's chaos and find the stillness that's always present beneath the noise. The peace isn't created, it's uncovered.
And the outcome of all this, of sustained awareness and relentless self-honesty, is acceptance, which is described as the real miracle.
And acceptance here is defined very carefully. It is not resignation or weakness.
That's an important decision.
It is. Resignation says, I give up. That is defeat. Acceptance is profound clarity. It says, I will stop fighting what is, and now, seeing reality clearly, I am ready to work with it for transformation.
So acceptance means stopping the energy drain from fighting reality and channeling that saved energy toward constructive change.
Yes. When you stop fighting the pain, the dynamic changes entirely. Pain shifts from being a judge to being a teacher. Fear softens into an understanding of what truly matters. Reaction transforms into wisdom.
For example, if I'm anxious about a work deadline, forced positivity tells me to deny the anxiety. Resignation tells me to just ignore the deadline. Acceptance is acknowledging I am anxious about this, and then using that self-aware energy to focus on the steps needed to complete it.
The anxiety becomes the fuel for focused attention rather than the reason for paralysis. The feeling shifts its role from being your master to being your guide. And awareness is the intelligence that reads the guide and then responds constructively.
As we draw this deep dive to a close, the reflections emphasize that this path moves us beyond the mind's rigid labels. Good, bad, success, failure. It asks us to see life more holistically.
The human mind naturally operates in these dualities. It needs sharp contrast to make sense of things. But the truth of existence, when you see it through the lens of this wisdom, is far more subtle and vast.
The reflection offers a beautiful analogy here. The same rain that ruins a picnic also nourishes the field.
Yes. And the same heartbreaking loss that causes intense personal pain may, in the long term, open up your capacity for deeper compassion.
Awareness helps us see this wider, holistic perspective where every part of life has its rightful place. Without awareness, we only see the immediate self-centered consequence, the spoiled plan, the personal pain.
With awareness, we start to see the interconnectedness, the ecological need for the rain, the maturing of the soul through sorrow, the function of darkness in defining light.
And this view really defines the spirit of Aham Bharatham, this idea of a timeless consciousness that holds these apparent contradictions in a perfect balance. It teaches that even the struggles and the perceived failures are not errors.
They're embedded within a divine, intelligent flow, within Dharma. And this wisdom, it's not some historical relic. It is a modern necessity in our current world of constant distraction and noise.
The notifications, the deadlines, the information overload.
Awareness is essential for spiritual survival. It's the critical anchor in a churning world. We're constantly being pulled outward by technology and consumer culture. Awareness is the deliberate act of pulling our focus back inward, back home to ourselves.
It's the quiet recognition that peace isn't somewhere out there. It's not dependent on achievement or perfect circumstances.
It is already within, just quietly waiting to be noticed. And sometimes the frantic search for peace is the greatest obstacle to finding it.
This leads us to the enduring message of this tradition, which really summarizes this whole transformation.
Yes. The essential difference between temporary positivity and enduring presence. Positivity gives a temporary shine, a conditional high. Awareness endures like the open sky itself, holding all experiences equally.
Positivity says everything must be fine.
And awareness says everything is as it is, and I see it clearly without judgment.
When you commit to living consciously, the reflection assures us your struggles stop being enemies and start being your guides.
Every strong emotion becomes a doorway. Every moment, a clear mirror reflecting truth.
Spirituality, then, is not about escaping life, but entering it fully, with your eyes wide open. Not smiling through everything, which is denial, but seeing through everything, which is ultimate clarity.
And when we finally embrace the whole sky, the bright, the dark, the ever-changing, we touch the peace that never leaves us, because it is our own true nature.
Indeed. What we've explored today is that the spiritual journey is one of presence, not performance. It demands relentless truthfulness and the courage to meet reality exactly as it is. That process of clear, conscious seeing, that drishti, is the path to Chaitanya.
The pursuit of forced happiness only creates division and delays our healing. But the pursuit of awareness integrates the self and provides that non-contingent anchor in any storm, allowing the peace that is inherently within us to be finally recognized.
This deep and reflective journey into the heart of genuine spiritual practice is just the beginning of what you will explore with Aham Bharatham. The goal, fundamentally, is presence, not forced positivity.
We invite you to continue this deep and reflective exploration into timeless wisdom. The heartbeat of India is vast. It covers ancient traditions, modern reflections, and enduring insights, a living continuum of self-discovery that is available to everyone.
We encourage you to follow and subscribe to the Aham Bharatham podcast to receive updates and continue this reflective journey with us. Let us explore the heritage, the culture, and the enduring spirit of heart together, moving past the surface to the consciousness that never changes.
The insights we've discussed today offer a powerful new way of viewing your inner world, one where profound clarity comes before lasting calm, and authenticity is the very highest form of spiritual practice.
Until next time, Namaste and Om Namah Shivaya.